Good morning, everyone. Ooh. Maybe lower that a little bit. Welcome to Sunday worship at the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa, or First U, or the Sauna. My name is Guy Belperche, and I am delighted to be your worship associate this morning. Whether you're taking part in this service here in the worship hall at First U, from your home, or from wherever else you may be, whenever you may be watching, you are welcome here. We acknowledge that our First U campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all who have ears to hear, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. And on that note, I want to acknowledge the visit today of the Pope, the leader of the Catholic Church in the world, to Canada to apologize for the role of the Catholic Church in the abomination and national shame that was the residential school system. Please take care and take advantage of online opportunities at First U to stay in touch during the ongoing pandemic. If you are new to First U and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa, all one word, .ca. Following our service, please join us as well for our virtual hospitality hour on Zoom. And now, here is David Chernishenko from our board with announcements for today. David.
Thank you, Guy. Good morning, everyone. Not quite as hot and sticky as it might have been. How's that for looking at the glass half full? So as Guy said, my name is David Chernishenko. I'm a member of the Board of Directors here at First U, and I have a couple of announcements this morning. Our First U COVID Task Force has agreed that masks are now required for all congregational activities that occur indoors at the church, and all congregational food and beverage-related indoor activities will be moved outside or postponed until further notice. We're eager to reverse this, but only as soon as we feel it is safe enough to do so again. And secondly, our First U Trivia Night has changed its scheduling, but it continues as lively as ever. It will take place on Monday evening, July 25th. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m., and they're trying this new time slot and see how well that works. All are welcome to join an evening of trivia on Zoom. Questions are diverse, fun, and taken from several sources. All you need is a pen or pencil, paper, and your thinking cap. Play alone or team up with friends. For more information, see the EUU. Thank you.
During the continuing pandemic, we encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter, to check our Facebook and Instagram pages, and our webpage for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever, albeit with much of it online. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are part of our spiritual community, and you are welcome. We light our chalice this morning by these words by Barnaby Fetter. We kindle a flame we trust will lead us forward as we travel in unknown lands where the question, "Shall I ever get there?" resounds, a pure note in every silence. Our call to worship today comes from Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Children, language, lands. Almost everything was stripped away, stolen when you weren't looking because you were trying to stay alive. In the face of such loss, one thing our people could not surrender was the meaning of land. In the settler mind, land was property, real estate, capital, or natural resources. But to our people, it was everything. Identity, the connection to our ancestors, the home of our non-human kinfolk, our pharmacy, our library, the source of all that sustained us. Our lands were where our responsibility to the world was enacted, sacred ground. It belonged to itself. It was a gift, not a commodity. So it could never be bought or sold. These are the meanings people took with them when they were forced from their ancient homelands to new places.
There's one stone of condolence and sorrow today for Andrew and Mary Ella. Condolences to them about the death of their friend Candace, who passed away this week. And a stone for all those joys and sorrows kept in our hearts.
Our Time for All Ages story this morning is Shishi Etko, written by Nicola Campbell, an interior Salish and Métis author who lives in British Columbia. It is the story of a young girl, Shishi Etko, who, in this story, will shortly be leaving her family to attend a residential school. We have selected a video reading by Don Iverson, the former mayor of Edmonton from 2013 to 2021, recorded as part of the Mayor Reid series in Edmonton.
This book is about an Indigenous girl named Shishi Etko. Her people have always lived in North America, hunting, fishing, gathering traditional foods and medicines, making their own clothing, building their own homes, making their own rules, taking care of the land, telling stories, singing, and dancing. Children like Shishi Etko were loved so much that the whole community raised them together. Parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, and elders. And in this story, we learn that Shishi Etko has to go to residential school. It's the law. The school is far away and she'll have to travel for a couple of days to get there. And she won't see her parents for many months or even many years. She'll lose her traditional name and she'll be forced to speak English, a language that she doesn't even know. So let's find out how she finds strength and resilience in the days before she must leave. 1, 2, 3, 4 mornings left until I go to school, said Shishi Etko as she watched sunlight dance butterfly steps across her mother's sleeping face. When streams of light sent shadows across her mother's cheeks, she said, "Mom, wake up. It's time for us to bathe down by the creek." Her mother blinked. "You woke early today, Shishi Etko," she said, swinging her feet to the floor. With the first steps of sunrise, Shishi Etko skipped along the worn path, through the cottonwood trees, all the way to the creek. "My girl, we will not see each other until the wild roses bloom in the spring and the salmon have returned to our river. I want you to remember the ways of our people. I want you to remember our songs and our dances, our laughter and our joy. And I want you to remember our land." Then her mother began to sing. Her voice traveled from tree to tree, flowing through the valley, caught by the wind, carried on the wings of eagles in flight. Shishi Etko could not help herself. She looked at everything, tall grass swaying to the rhythm of the breeze, determined mosquitoes, working bumblebees. She memorized each shiny rock, the sand beneath her feet, crayfish and minnows and tadpoles that squirmed between her toes, all at the bottom of the creek. They were almost home when cousins, aunties, and uncles and the rhythmic tap of Yaya's old cedar cane could be heard through the trees. "Mother, Father, they're here!" Shishietko ran to greet her family. Sunlight, wood smoke, and scents of barbecued sockeye salmon filled the air. Dishes clattered, footsteps pitter-pattered, and laughter echoed from tree to tree. Afterwards, in the late-night silence, tucked safely under Yaya's patchwork quilt, Shishietko counted her fingers. "There are only 1, 2, 3 more sleeps until I go to school." In the morning when Shishietko woke, the sky was changing, navy to brilliant blue. She lay listening to the cool autumn breeze sing morning songs, soft drum heart beats. "Let's take the canoe out on the lake," she said to her father. Hand in hand, they walked along the creek all the way to the lake. "My girl, these are the things you must always remember," he said, gesturing to the trees, mountains, and water around them. And together, they picked up the canoe and carried it to the water's edge. With yellow cedar paddles, they strolled across smooth water. Reach, dip, pull back. Reach, dip, pull back. The only sounds they heard were the whistling birds and their paddles breaking the surface of the lake, surrounding them with ripples. Circle on, circle. Her father sang the paddle song that her grandfather used to sing. His voice traveled across the water, a chant that kept their pace. Shishietko could not help herself. She looked at everything. She tasted the rain that fell on her face. She listened as the water washed every rocky beach. And when the eagle's song echoed through the valley, traveling just beyond reach, she sang her grandfather's paddle song, and their voices echoed from beach to beach. In a day full of sunlight, Shishietko and her father returned to pack her things. Finally, in the silence of the night, belly full, huddled safely under Yaya's patchwork quilt, Shishietko counted her fingers. 1, 2, only 2 more sleeps, and then fell into water-exhausted sleep. Shishietko was dreaming when she heard her Yaya say, "Shishietko, wake up, my girl. We have some things to do today." Yaya gave her a small bag made from soft, tanned deer hide and sinew. "This, my girl, is a bag for you to keep all your memories. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, remember to keep them safe." The sun wasn't up yet when they walked out the door and into the trees. The path was dark and smelled alive with rain, wet soil, and leaves. They walked until the sun was shining. Yaya brought her to visit a great big fir tree, and Shishietko placed a sprig into her bag of memories. They visited a hemlock, a cedar, even a pine, and each time she placed a sprig into her bag of memories. They went to visit silver willow, red willow, sagebrush, cottonwood, Labrador bushes, and even kinnikinick. They visited blueberry, salmonberry, Saskatoon, and huckleberry bushes. They found bitterroot, wild potato, and wild celery patches. On and on they went through the fields of wild roses, Indian paintbrush, fireweed, and columbine. Shishietko promised herself, "I will remember everything." Each plant they came to, she listened carefully to its name, then asked once, twice, and even 3 times, "Is it food or medicine, Yaya? Is it always safe?" Then whispering its name, she placed dried berry, root, flower, and fragrant leaf into her bag of memories. That night when Shishietko crawled under her patchwork quilt, she counted her fingers and said, 1, only 1 more sleep. At home, the cattle truck that gathered children waited. Shishietko picked up her bag of memories, a pinch of tobacco for offering, and then went out the back door to her favorite place beneath a great big fir tree. She placed the tobacco at its base, then tucked her bag inside its roots. Dear grandfather tree, please keep my memories and my family safe. I will be home in the spring. Shishietko, come inside now. It's time for you to go. When they rattled down the dirt road and into the trees, Shishietko held a sprig of fir close to her heart. Shishietko could not help herself. She looked at everything. Tall grass swaying to the rhythm of the breeze, determined mosquitoes, working bumblebees. She memorized every shiny rock. The sand beneath her feet, crayfish and minnows and tadpoles that squirmed between her toes, all at the bottom of the creek.
Our reading today consists of two additional passages from Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Modern capitalist societies, however richly endowed, dedicate themselves to the proposition of scarcity. Inadequacy of economic means is the first principle of the world's wealthiest peoples. The shortage is due not to how much material wealth there actually is, but to the way in which it is exchanged or circulated. The market system artificially creates scarcity by blocking the flow between the source and the consumer. Grain may rot in the warehouse while hungry people starve because they cannot pay for it. The result is famine for some and diseases of excess for others. The very earth that sustains us is being destroyed to fuel injustice, an economy that grants personhood to corporations but denies it to the more than human beings. This is a Wendigo economy. And the second, know the ways of the ones who take care of you so that you may take care of them. Introduce yourself, be accountable as the one who comes asking for life. Ask permission before taking. Abide by the answer. Never take the first, never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only that which is given. Never take more than half. Leave some for others. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully. Never waste what you have taken. Share. Give thanks for what you have been given. Give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. And now please, as you are willing and able, join in singing our first hymn, number 134, Our World is One World. And the lyrics will be on the screen as well.
Its ways of wealth affect
And special thanks this morning to our Director of Music, Jen Bernston, who actually recorded that at home this week because she wasn't able to be with us today. Well, now to the main event. Our speaker this morning is no stranger to First U and certainly no stranger to serving others. The Honourable John Reid, Privy Councillor, has been the Information Commissioner for Canada, political advisor to the Chief Electoral Officer of the U.S. Transitional Administration in Eastern Slovenia, a senior member of the Provisional Election Commission for Bosnia and Herzegovina, President of the Canadian Nuclear Association, Executive Director of the Forum for Young Canadians, Minister of Federal Provincial Affairs in Pierre Trudeau's government, MP for Kenora-Rainy River, and a member of several House of Commons committees. He has often been asked to speak and advise new governments on infrastructure and processes for a functioning democracy, as well as advise on systems to establish meaningful access to information. This morning, John will be sharing his thoughts and reflections on Len Marchand, residential school survivor, Indigenous community leader and teacher, Member of Parliament, Cabinet Minister, Senator, and member of the Order of Canada and the Order of British Columbia. Len Marchand's life includes many firsts, and he was a most unusual and accomplished individual.
Thank you, Guy. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the first lessons I learned when I was elected to the House of Commons was that members of Parliament, your colleagues, did not pay any attention to the past lives of the members of Parliament. And the reason for that is that all members of Parliament have to go through the same gauntlet to get elected. You must get elected. So everybody in the House of Commons has gone through that. Now, there are some who are more important than others. There are some who have an easier time than others, but we all have to be elected. We're all subject to the same discipline. There's a 35% change in each sitting of the House of Commons because there are people who are defeated, there are those who did not run again, and there's who have passed away during the session. So consequently, there are always a large number of newbies in the House of Commons. So into the House of Commons in 1968 came Len Marchand. He came with a political reputation. He had won the Kamloops riding from David Fulton. Fulton had been a real power in the House of Commons for his common sense, for his activities in trying to find solutions to our constitutional problems. Finding a way to amend our Constitution was a difficulty, and his participation in the Fulton-Favreau formula was an important step in finding a solution. Len came quietly into the House of Commons. He was an Aboriginal, an Indigenous person, and as it turned out, he was the first Indigenous person to sit in the House of Commons. But we did not know that at the time because he was regarded, like everybody else, as somebody who had gone through the gauntlet of elections. It turned out that Len was a real trailblazer. Again, we did not know that at this time. He had a great number of firsts. Winning the Kamloops riding was not his first foray into political territory, for he had worked for Arthur Lang and Jack Nicholson, who had been the senior ministers in Pierre Trudeau's government in British Columbia. And he had worked on Indian affairs for them and spent time in Ottawa. He was recognized that he would do well in politics because he was a rarity in British Columbia politics. He was a liberal in the middle of the interior. Not many liberals ever got elected in the interior of British Columbia. So Len first became the parliamentary secretary to Jean Chrétien, who was then Minister of Indian Affairs, then became the Minister for Small Business, and then became Minister of the Environment. He was a member of Parliament for a decade. Len was born in 1933 to illiterate parents, a member of the Okanagan Indian Band. He went to the Kamloops Residential School for 2 years, described the experience as formative for his future, for he appreciated the teaching and he appreciated the courses that he took. He had 2 complaints, however. He disliked the food, not unusual if you go to an institutional organization, and hated the coal oil shampoo, which was designed to kill the lice. He described the education there that he got as very good. It led to his entry to the Vernon High School. He was the first Aboriginal Indigenous person to graduate. However, he had to go back for a second time because the courses he was offered were what he called farmers' courses. And he had been turned down when he had gone to apply to the University of British Columbia. After he had taken the regular courses, he was admitted with no problems and had a science degree after 4 years at UBC. He was one of the first Aboriginals to enter university, but he also went on then to take an MA in the United States at the University of Idaho. And he then, after that, worked in the Kamloops Research Center and was co-author with a number of others in a number of scientific papers. He had been admitted to take a PhD in forestry when he got a call from the president of the Kamloops Liberal Party offering him the nomination for the 1968 election. He hesitated, but in the end he decided that if he won, he would go to Ottawa. If he lost, he would go and do his PhD. It was Pierre Trudeau's great election. Len was elected, and then he entered into his political career. He lost in the election of 1979. I can tell you what a very difficult election that one was. However, he was appointed to the Senate in 1984, served for 6 years, and retired before retirement age. He returned to Kamloops and took on the position of Chief Administrator of the newly formed Nicola Tribal Association. He was given great credit for his ability as administrator, but also because of his stature, very high in the interior of British Columbia. Over time, this new organization became very successful, and at his death, the Upper Nicola chief, Harvey MacLeod, said that the new organization had been a success only because of the status of Len and his ability to bring people together and his ability to ensure that governments paid attention. So he was very successful in his own area. Now, Len led an active career as an academic, as a politician, as an advocate for the various Indian communities, both local and provincial. And his work for his people was huge, both in what he accomplished and in particular, the example that he provided to all, both those of his tribal associations and to the people of Kamloops. You don't get reelected unless you are serving the whole community. And he was successful in that. He was a man of many firsts, and he showed the way for Aboriginals and Indigenous people to participate in politics and community society. And then at the end, he wrote an autobiography entitled Breaking Trail. And it's unfortunately out of print, but you can find it occasionally in library loan. Len was married to Donna Parr for 56 years. They had 2 children, Len Marchand, who is an arts administrator in British Columbia, and her brother Len Jr., who is now a member of the British Columbia Court of Appeals. Len was a leader both by example and by action. He accomplished a great deal for Indigenous people, both in his home area, provincially, and also nationally. But he was not alone. Think about the flowering of Indigenous people in the late 1950s, early 1960s. Buffy St. Marie in music, the Inuit with their sculpture and tapestry, the artists like Norval Morrisseau, and not to forget, because this is a hockey environment, George Armstrong, the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were all leaders in their field, and they all fed off one another, and they all instilled a feeling of pride and accomplishment in the Aboriginal and Indigenous communities. Now we are seeing a different kind of development. We're seeing their continued involvement in national, provincial, local affairs, and their contributions to the arts and to a whole range of other activities. But we're now seeing something different. We're now seeing entrepreneurial activities by bands, by treaty organizations, and by individuals. What we're seeing are the processes of overcoming obstacles and difficulties and going without. But great progress is being made, and that augurs for their success and for our success as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I must admit I was completely unaware of Len Marchand's life before I started working on this service with John, and I'm so glad that I became aware. As you said, a most accomplished, a most unusual individual, but representation obviously matters, and his example has blazed that trail for others to follow along behind him. This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We have been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this community. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or anywhere else, you are part of this community. To make a gift in support of the work of this congregation, you don't need to use the baskets that will soon be making their way among the pews. Wherever you are invited to go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or to keep up with your pledge. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate these gifts to the work of this community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, and loving one another. And now, as the baskets are passed within Worship Hall, you are invited to join in singing our next hymn, number 121, We'll Build a Land.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the
It's a little warm. Before we begin to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that our online hospitality hour will begin at 11:30 this morning. As we extinguish our chalice this morning, my extinguisher, let these words from Samuel A. Trumbore guide and inspire us. Go forth in simplicity. Find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. This morning's chalice is extinguished, but our connections and our faith remain. Our final song will be Spirit of Life, and as you go forth after this, may peace, love, and joy be with you. Now, normally we would have music to go along with Spirit of Life, but that won't be the case today, so we will be doing it a cappella. I'm hoping you all know the tune and the words by now. So if we get the lyrics up. Does somebody want to lead? You can all stand for this if you'd like. I'll put my mask on as I'll be singing as well. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, coule dans mes mains, vie d'espoir et de justice, terre nourris-moi, ciel emporte-moi, source de vie, viens vers moi, viens vers moi. Thank you very much.